Story. Chapter 1. Perfect Lies. Alexander Alex Reeves sat behind his executive desk at Reeves Construction, reviewing the quarterly reports with intense focus. His company's latest project, a 30-story commercial complex in downtown Hartford, would cement his legacy as Connecticut's premier developer. 20 years of strategic decisions, calculated risks, and unwavering determination had built his empire. At 45, he commanded respect in every room he entered. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reeves, your daughter Rachel is here to see you." "Send her in," Alex replied, his stern expression softening slightly. Rachel burst through the door, her college backpack slung over one shoulder. At 19, she carried herself with the same confidence as her father, though her artistic nature, inherited from her mother, showed in her carefully curated outfit and the sketchbook she always carried. "Dad, you won't believe what happened in my business class today," she began, dropping into one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Professor Martinez used Reeves Construction as a case study. "The whole class turned to look at me when he mentioned your name." Alex allowed himself a small smile. "And what did Professor Martinez have to say about us?" "He called you ruthlessly efficient and unervingly precise in your business strategies." Rachel pulled out her notebook. "He talked about how you outmaneuvered Davidson Development in 2018 to secure the Riverfront project. Davidson made the mistake of thinking friendship meant I wouldn't compete aggressively," Alex said, his voice carrying a sharp edge. "In business, there's no room for sentiment." Rachel studied her father's expression. "Mom says you used to be different. More relaxed." Alex's jaw tightened. "Your mother remembers what she wants to remember. Speaking of which, how is she doing with her teaching?" "She loves it at the community college. Actually, she's been staying late for faculty meetings lately. Says she's finally finding her creative spark again." Alex nodded, though something in his daughter's words nagged at him. Monica had been different lately, distracted, checking her phone more often, humming to herself like she used to when they first met. He'd attributed it to her renewed passion for art, but 23 years of marriage had taught him to recognize subtle shifts. "Dad," Rachel's voice pulled him back. "Will you be home for dinner tonight? Mom's making your favorite, beef bourguignon." "I have a business dinner with the zoning board," he replied. "Tell your mother not to wait up." After Rachel left, Alex opened his laptop and pulled up his calendar. The business dinner was a lie. He'd finished negotiations with the zoning board last week. Tonight, he would drive home unannounced and observe his wife's late-night activities himself. Across town at Sterling Community College, Monica Reeves stood before her easel in the art studio, adding final touches to her latest painting. At 43, she retained the beauty that had first caught Alex's attention, though years of suppressing her artistic dreams had left invisible scars. "That's remarkable work." James Davidson's voice came from behind her. "Your use of light and shadow captures such raw emotion." Monica turned to face the literature professor, her cheeks flushing slightly. "James, I didn't hear you come in." "I couldn't stay away," he said, moving closer to examine the painting. "Your talent deserves a wider audience than just your students." Alex says the same thing, though he's usually too busy to look at my work anymore. Monica set down her brush, aware of how close James stood. "Your husband builds physical structures," James said softly. "But you, Monica, you build worlds with your brush. There's magic in what you do." Their eyes met, and Monica felt the familiar flutter in her stomach. Over the past few months, James had become more than just a colleague. Their conversations about art and literature had awakened something she thought long buried under years of comfortable suburban existence. "We should get coffee," James suggested, his hand brushing against hers as he reached for one of her sketches. "That new place downtown just opened. I'd love to hear more about your influences." Monica glanced at her phone. No messages from Alex. "I'd like that." At home that evening, Rachel sat in her room, trying to focus on her economics textbook, but distracted by the sounds of her mother preparing to go out. She heard the shower running, then the click of heels on the hallway floor, followed by the subtle scent of perfume. The expensive kind her father had given Monica for their anniversary, which she rarely wore anymore. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Having coffee with colleagues. Don't wait up." Love you. She frowned at the message. Her mother had been having a lot of coffee with colleagues lately. Part of her wanted to question it, but another part, the part that remembered her mother's tears during countless lonely dinners while Alex worked late, wanted to believe Monica was simply reclaiming her identity. The sun had set by the time Alex's Mercedes pulled into their driveway. The house was quiet, but Monica's car was gone. He checked his security app. She had left 45 minutes ago. Removing his shoes, he moved silently through their home, noting details with the same precision he applied to building inspections. Monica's art studio, converted from their formal dining room years ago, drew his attention. The space smelled of oil paints and turpentine, but underneath lay a hint of unfamiliar cologne. Alex approached her easel, where a fresh painting dried. The subject made his blood run cold. A man's hand reaching toward a woman's silhouette, their fingers almost touching, the space between them charged with unspoken desire. He found her sketchbook next, filled with recent drawings. Page after page revealed intimate studies of a man's face, strong jaw, intense eyes, sensual mouth. The man appeared repeatedly, in various poses and expressions, each sketch dated within the last 3 months. The final drawing showed the same man in profile, and beneath it, Monica had written a single word, James. Alex's phone vibrated, a text from his private investigator, who he'd hired the moment Rachel mentioned the late faculty meetings. A photo appeared on his screen. Monica and a man entering Café Nouveau, their hands clasped, her head thrown back in laughter. The man matched the sketches perfectly. A second text followed with the man's identity, Professor James Davidson, Literature Department, Sterling Community College. Divorced twice. Multiple complaints from former colleagues about inappropriate relationships. A gambling problem carefully hidden behind academic credentials. Alex closed the sketchbook and returned it exactly as he'd found it. He took photos of the paintings and sketches with his phone, his movements precise and controlled. Then he sat in the darkness of the studio, surrounded by evidence of his wife's betrayal, and began to plan. When Monica returned home 3 hours later, the house was empty and dark. She hummed softly as she removed her jewelry, her lips still tingling from James's goodnight kiss. In her purse, a gallery business card carried his handwritten note. Your talent deserves to be seen. Let me help you shine. She didn't notice the silent figure watching from the shadows of her studio, didn't see the cold fury in her husband's eyes as she touched her lips and smiled at her reflection. She was too lost in the intoxicating feeling of being desired, appreciated, understood, everything she thought she'd lost in her years as Mrs. Alexander Reeves. That night, Alex lay awake beside his sleeping wife, his mind calculating moves and countermoves like the master strategist he was. Monica had made a fatal mistake in betraying him. Soon, she would learn what everyone in the business world already knew. Alexander Reeves didn't forgive betrayal, and his revenge was always absolute. Chapter 2. The Unraveling. Professor James Davidson's office at Sterling Community College reflected his carefully cultivated image. Literary classics lined the shelves, framed poetry broadsides adorned the walls, and an antique desk held stacks of student papers waiting to be graded. But hidden behind this scholarly facade lay a predator's calculating mind. James reviewed his bank statement with growing anxiety. The numbers glared back at him, thousands lost at underground poker games, credit card debt mounting. His salary barely covered his alimony payments to 2 ex-wives, let alone his gambling habits. But Monica Reeves represented a potential solution to all his problems. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called, quickly switching screens to a student's essay. Monica entered, wearing a cream-colored blouse that complemented her dark hair. I hope I'm not interrupting. Never, James replied, rising to greet her. You're a welcome distraction from freshman compositions about the symbolic meaning of Gatsby's green light. She laughed, settling into the chair across from him. I brought you something. From her bag, she produced a small wrapped package. James opened it to find a leather-bound collection of Pablo Neruda's love poems. Monica, this is exquisite. Open it, she urged softly. Inside, she had sketched his portrait on the title page, surrounded by lines from If You Forget Me in her elegant handwriting. Below the drawing, she'd written, For the man who reminded me that passion still exists. M. James reached across the desk and took her hand. You're extraordinary, you know that? That businessman husband of yours doesn't deserve your talent, your soul. Alex is complicated, Monica said, but didn't pull her hand away. He provided everything I thought I wanted. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. Then let me help you find yourself again. James moved around the desk, pulling her to her feet. Connecticut has no-fault divorce laws. With his wealth, the settlement would set you up for life. We could open that gallery you've dreamed about, combine art and literature in a space that celebrates creativity. Monica's heart raced at his closeness, at the possibilities he described. Alex wouldn't let me go easily. You don't know him like I do. He destroys anyone who crosses him. Let me worry about Alexander Reeves, James murmured, drawing her closer. I've dealt with controlling husbands before. They're all the same. So focused on their money and power that they never see the knife coming until it's too late. What neither of them noticed was the small device attached beneath James's desk, a premium-grade bug planted by Frank Sullivan, the private investigator Alex had hired. In his hotel room across town, Alex listened to their conversation through high-quality headphones, his expression unchanging as his wife melted into another man's arms. Sullivan, a retired detective with 30 years of experience, watched his client carefully. Want me to dig deeper into Davidson's background? Alex nodded, removing the headphones. Everything. His finances, his previous marriages, his gambling habits. I want to know every skeleton in his closet, every weakness we can exploit. Already found something interesting, Sullivan said, opening a file on his laptop. 3 years ago, Davidson had an affair with a married professor at Hartford University. When her husband discovered it, Davidson convinced her to liquidate their joint accounts and run away with him. 2 months later, he disappeared with the money, leaving her bankrupt and humiliated. Is she willing to talk? Better. Sullivan smiled grimly. She kept emails, hotel receipts, bank statements, everything documenting his manipulation. And she's not the only one. I've identified 2 other women with similar stories at different colleges. Alex absorbed this information with cold satisfaction. Contact them all. Offer whatever compensation they need to share their stories. And Sullivan? Make sure they understand that when the time comes, their testimony will destroy him. Meanwhile, Rachel sat in her favorite campus coffee shop, trying to make sense of the changes in her family. Her mother's recent transformation bothered her, not the renewed interest in art, which Rachel supported, but the secretive phone calls, the sudden attention to appearance, the late nights that Monica attributed to faculty meetings. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. Dinner tonight? Just us. Rachel hesitated before replying. Her father rarely suggested one-on-one dinners, preferring family meals where he could observe and control the dynamic. Something must be wrong. That evening, at an upscale restaurant downtown, Alex studied his daughter across the table. She had Monica's artistic sensitivity but his own sharp intellect, a combination that made her particularly perceptive. How's Mom doing at the college? He asked casually. Rachel twirled pasta around her fork. She seems happy, more energetic. She's even talking about submitting work to galleries again. Any particular reason for this sudden change? She mentions the other professors sometimes, especially this literature professor, James Davidson. He's been encouraging her to pursue her art seriously. Rachel watched her father's reaction carefully. Dad, is everything okay between you and Mom? Alex's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried a subtle edge. Why do you ask? She's different lately, distracted, and you've been working later than usual. Rachel set down her fork. If something's wrong, I want to know. I'm not a child anymore. No, you're not, Alex agreed. Which is why I need you to trust that I'm handling the situation. What situation? Rachel pressed. Rachel. Alex's tone carried a warning. Some things between your mother and me need to stay between us. Focus on your studies. Let me deal with any complications. Later that night, Alex met with Michael Torres, his corporate lawyer and closest friend, in the private room of an exclusive club. Torres reviewed the evidence Alex had gathered, photos, recordings, Financial records showing Monica's use of joint accounts to fund James's gambling. You've built a solid case, Torres said. But Alex, revenge won't heal the wound of betrayal. This isn't about healing, Alex replied, his voice cold. This is about justice. Monica and her professor think they can take what's mine? Let them try. By the time I'm done, they'll wish they'd never met. Torres recognized the look in his friend's eyes, the same expression Alex wore before destroying business rivals. What's your play? First, we let them think they're winning. I'll appear distracted, workaholic, oblivious. Meanwhile, we'll move assets, create the illusion of business troubles. When Monica files for divorce, she'll think she's striking at the perfect moment. And Davidson? A cruel smile touched Alex's lips. He's a parasite who destroys women's lives for profit. By the time I'm finished, his reputation will be in ruins, his career over, and every penny Monica gives him will disappear into a hole of his own making. The collateral damage, Torres began, is necessary. Alex cut him off. Monica chose her path the moment she betrayed our marriage. Now she'll learn what it means to cross Alexander Reeves. As they spoke, Monica lay in James's arms in his small apartment across town, believing she had found true love at last. She didn't know that every text, call, secret meeting was being documented. She couldn't see the web of destruction her husband was weaving around her carefully constructed dream of freedom. In the darkness of his home office, Alex reviewed the day's surveillance photos. His finger traced Monica's smiling face as she entered James's apartment building. Soon, that smile would fade. Soon, she would understand the true cost of betrayal. And when she did, Alexander Reeves would show no mercy. Chapter 3. Best Served Cold. The morning sun illuminated Monica's art studio as she prepared for her first gallery showing in over 2 decades. James had arranged everything through his contacts in the local art scene, convincing a small but respected gallery to feature her work. As she wrapped her paintings for transport, her phone buzzed with a text from him. Can't wait to see my muse shine tonight. Everything's perfect. Monica smiled at the message, then glanced guiltily at her wedding ring. The weight of it felt heavier lately, a constant reminder of her double life. She had already spoken with a divorce lawyer, though she hadn't filed the papers yet. James insisted they wait for the right moment, when Alex would be most vulnerable. Mom? Rachel's voice startled her. Need help with those? Sweetheart, you scared me. Monica turned to find her daughter leaning against the doorframe, watching her with an unreadable expression. Yes, please. The gallery wants everything delivered by noon. As they worked together, Rachel noticed details she'd been trying to ignore. The new paintings filled with barely concealed passion, the sketches of James hidden beneath other works, the way her mother's hands trembled slightly whenever her phone chimed. Does Dad know about the gallery showing? Rachel asked carefully. He's away on business, Monica replied too quickly. Besides, he hasn't shown interest in my art for years. What Monica didn't know was that Alex had orchestrated his business trip specifically for this night. From his hotel room in Boston, Alex watched the gallery's security feed on his laptop. He had acquired access weeks ago, another piece in his elaborate plan. Sullivan sat beside him, monitoring social media coverage of the event. Your wife's got talent, Sullivan commented, studying a photo of Monica beside her work. Davidson's already promoting her online as Connecticut's hidden genius. Alex's expression hardened. He's setting the stage perfectly. Has Torres confirmed the financial arrangements? Everything's in place. The shell companies are established, and the paper trail showing business losses is solid. When she files for divorce, the timing will look suspicious, like you're hiding assets. And the settlement offer? $2.5 million. Enough to make her greedy, but not enough to raise red flags. Davidson's gambling debts total almost twice that amount. At the gallery, Monica stood surrounded by admirers, her black dress elegant against the white walls. James moved through the crowd like a conductor, orchestrating introductions to critics and collectors. Every few minutes, his hand would find the small of her back, a gesture of possession that made her heart race. You're a revelation, he whispered during a quiet moment. Look at them. They're enchanted. This is just the beginning, Monica. Once you're free from Alex, we'll open our own space. No more hiding your light. Monica squeezed his hand. I'm terrified of what comes next. Alex will fight the divorce. Let him fight. I know people who can help, lawyers who specialize in high-net-worth divorces. They'll make sure you get what you deserve. Rachel arrived late to the gallery, her expression troubled. She had spent the afternoon researching James Davidson, driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore. What she found disturbed her. Whispers of inappropriate relationships, sudden departures from previous positions, rumors of gambling debts. Rachel, Monica called out, pulling her daughter into a hug. I didn't think you'd make it. Beautiful work, Mom, Rachel said sincerely, though her eyes were cold when they landed on James. Professor Davidson, I'm surprised to see you so involved in organizing this. James smiled smoothly. Your mother's talent deserves recognition. I merely opened a few doors. And her marriage? Does that deserve recognition too? Rachel, Monica hissed, but James maintained his composure. Sometimes, Rachel, happiness requires difficult choices. I hope you'll understand that your mother deserves a chance at real fulfillment. Rachel looked between them, suddenly understanding everything. Does Dad know about your fulfillment, Mom? Before Monica could respond, a gallery assistant approached with urgent news. Several major pieces had sold, including a dramatic portrait that bore a subtle resemblance to James. The buyers remained anonymous, but the prices were significant. We're celebrating tonight, James declared, pulling Monica close. Rachel, join us? There's a wonderful little restaurant around the corner. I have studying to do, Rachel replied coldly. She left without hugging her mother goodbye. In his hotel room, Alex made the final transfers. Every painting Monica sold that night had been purchased by corporations he controlled. The funds would appear to come from legitimate buyers, giving Monica and James false confidence in their future plans. The daughter knows, Sullivan observed, watching Rachel's hasty departure on the security feed. She was bound to figure it out. Rachel has her mother's intuition, but my ability to see through deception. Alex closed his laptop. Keep monitoring Davidson's gambling activities. I want to know the moment he takes the bait. That bait had been carefully laid over the previous weeks. Alex had arranged for James to receive inside information about a supposedly fixed horse race, along with an introduction to a high-stakes poker game where the other players were all professionals on Alex's payroll. Later that night, while Monica celebrated her success with James, Alex met with Carmen Delgado in a discreet bar just outside the city. Carmen, one of James's previous victims, had agreed to help destroy him. He'll do exactly what he did to me, Carmen warned, her voice bitter. He'll convince your wife to invest in his dreams, then vanish with everything. I'm counting on it, Alex replied. Are you prepared to testify about your experience when the time comes? Carmen nodded, clutching her wine glass. I've kept everything, texts, emails, bank records showing how he manipulated me into emptying my savings. He even convinced me to mortgage my house. And when you confronted him, he said I was unstable, that I had imagined our relationship. The university believed him. I lost everything, my reputation, my tenure, my home. Alex slid a document across the table. Sign this. It guarantees your cooperation in exchange for financial compensation and a position at one of my subsidiaries. As Carmen signed, Alex's phone buzzed with an update from Sullivan. James had just lost $50,000 in the poker game and was desperate to continue playing. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The next morning, Monica woke up in James's apartment, still glowing from her triumph. She didn't notice him slipping away to make urgent calls about covering his gambling losses, didn't see the desperation in his eyes when he checked his bank balance. Alex, back in his office, reviewed Torres's latest report. The law firm Monica had contacted specialized in aggressive divorce settlements. They would push hard for a quick resolution once they saw evidence of his company's apparent financial troubles. Final preparations are complete, Torres confirmed. The shell companies are in place, the assets are protected, and the paper trail suggests business losses that coincide perfectly with Monica's gallery success. Excellent. Alex stood at his office window, watching the city below. Let them think they're winning. Let them plan their future together. When they finally make their move, they'll have nothing, Torres finished. The settlement money will vanish into Davidson's gambling debts, The gallery dreams will collapse, and Monica will learn what it truly means to lose everything. Alex smiled coldly. Phase 1 is complete. Now we wait for them to spring the trap themselves. The first act of revenge had been set in motion with the precision of a master architect. Like the buildings he constructed, every element was carefully designed, weakness calculated, pressure point identified. Monica and James, celebrating their supposed victory, had no idea they were actually celebrating their own destruction. In her study, Rachel stared at her father's business card, torn between loyalty and truth. She had seen enough to understand that her mother's betrayal went deep, but something about her father's recent calmness frightened her. She knew his nature. The quieter he became, the more dangerous his fury. The stage was set. The players had made their opening moves, and Alexander Reeves, master of the long game, waited patiently for his carefully orchestrated revenge to unfold. Chapter 4. Counter Moves. Monica Reeves stared at the bank statement in disbelief. The settlement money from Alex sat untouched in their joint account, but something felt wrong. She had expected him to fight harder, to unleash the ruthless business tactics she'd witnessed over 23 years of marriage. Instead, he had agreed to her terms with unsettling ease. He's planning something, she told James as they sat in his cramped office at Sterling Community College. I know, Alex. He never concedes without a reason. James dismissed her concerns with a wave. You're paranoid, darling. The man's empire is crumbling. Even the Hartford Business Journal wrote about Reeves Construction's financial troubles. He settled because he had to protect what little he has left. You don't understand. Alex built that company from nothing. He wouldn't let it fail unless... Monica's voice trailed off as realization hit her. Unless he wanted it to appear that way. James leaned forward, his charm slipping slightly to reveal irritation. Monica, stop. We have the money. We have our plans for the cafe gallery. Don't let paranoia ruin this. But Monica couldn't shake her unease. That afternoon, she hired a forensic accountant to investigate Alex's business dealings. The preliminary findings confirmed her suspicions, a complex web of shell companies and asset transfers that made no logical sense unless he's hiding something, she told her lawyer, Jennifer Martinez. These shell companies, the timing of the transfers, it's too perfect. Martinez reviewed the documents with growing concern. This could void the settlement agreement. If we can prove he deliberately concealed asset, file whatever motions you need to, Monica interrupted. I want everything he's hiding exposed. Across town, Alex sat in Michael Torres's office, reviewing the latest reports from his investigators. Monica's decision to challenge the settlement had been predicted, planned for, anticipated. She took the bait, Torres observed, sliding a copy of the legal filing across his desk. Just like you said she would. Alex's lips curved in a mirthless smile. Monica always did prefer direct confrontation. She thinks she's exposing my deception, but she's really just announcing her next move to the enemy. And Davidson? He's already making noise in academic circles, trying to damage my reputation. Let him. Each attack reveals another thread we can pull to unravel him. Torres studied his friend's expression. You knew they'd find the shell companies. I built them to be found, Alex confirmed. Each one leads to another. A trail of breadcrumbs that will keep their lawyers busy while we implement the next phase. A knock interrupted them. Carmen Delgado entered, carrying a thick file. The former student-turned-ally had spent weeks compiling evidence against James Davidson. You were right, she announced, placing the file before Alex. I found 2 more victims at his previous universities. Both married women, both convinced to invest in his schemes before he vanished with their money. Alex opened the file, examining statements, emails, and photographs documenting James's pattern of predatory behavior. Are they willing to testify? They're eager to, Carmen replied. One lost her house, the other her retirement savings. They want justice. They'll have it, Alex promised. But first, we need to understand his current vulnerabilities. Torres, what did Sullivan's investigation reveal about Davidson's gambling? Torres pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop. He's in deep with some dangerous people. Underground poker games, sports betting. He's burning through Monica's settlement money faster than she knows. Perfect. Alex stood, moving to the window that overlooked downtown Hartford. Now we wait for him to get desperate. When he does, Sullivan will be there to offer a solution. Meanwhile, Rachel sat in her bedroom at the Bennett's estate, surrounded by wedding magazines and vendor contracts. Her fiancé, Thomas, watched her with growing concern. Maybe we should postpone, he suggested gently. With everything happening between your parents. No, Rachel cut him off. Mom and James are helping plan everything. It's going to be perfect. Thomas hesitated. Your father isn't involved, Rachel snapped. He lost that right when he tried to destroy Mom's happiness. What Rachel didn't know was that Alex had already secured copies of vendor contracts, guest lists, and venue details through his extensive network. Each element of her dream wedding was being quietly duplicated, a parallel plan taking shape in the background. That evening, Monica and James hosted a faculty dinner party, attempting to counter the whispers circulating about their relationship. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Professor Davidson, a colleague, asked innocently, "What happened with that tenure review at your last university?" "I heard there were some irregular financial transactions." James's hand tightened around his wine glass. "A misunderstanding, nothing more. Politics in academia can be quite vicious." Monica noticed his discomfort, remembered similar deflections when she'd asked about his past. Later, alone in their bedroom, she confronted him. "You never told me about the financial irregularities at your last position." "Because they were nonsense," James replied sharply. "Jealous colleagues trying to block my advancement." "Why are you suddenly questioning me?" "I'm not questioning you. I just want to understand what we're facing." Alex won't stop. Alex. James exploded. "You're obsessed with what your ex might do instead of focusing on our future. The cafe gallery lease is signed. Construction starts next week. Stop letting him live in your head." Monica stepped back, startled by his outburst. For a moment, she saw something unfamiliar in his eyes, a flash of the same cold calculation she'd sometimes glimpsed in Alex's. Unknown to both of them, their conversation was being recorded. Frank Sullivan sat in a surveillance van nearby, monitoring the audio feed. The retired detective had investigated James years ago, but lacked evidence to build a case. Now, working for Alex, he finally had a chance to bring down the predator who had destroyed so many lives. "Got something interesting," Sullivan reported to Alex via secure phone. "Davidson's starting to crack under pressure. His mask slipped tonight." "Good," Alex replied. "Keep monitoring. The moment he makes contact with his bookie, activate our inside man at the poker game." The next day, Rachel visited her mother's new apartment, still struggling to reconcile the woman who had taught her about integrity with the one who had blown up their family. "The cafe gallery is going to be amazing," Monica gushed, showing Rachel the design plans. "James has such vision. We're blending literary events with art exhibitions, creating a cultural hub." Rachel examined the financial projections. "These revenue estimates seem optimistic, Mom. And the startup cost." "James has experience with this type of venture," Monica interrupted. "He knows what he's doing." "Does he?" Rachel met her mother's eyes. "Have you actually verified any of his claims?" Before Monica could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from her lawyer. New evidence had emerged about Alex's business dealings, apparent connections to offshore accounts that could indicate hidden assets. "Follow the motion," Monica texted back. "We're taking this to court." She didn't notice Rachel photographing the cafe gallery plans with her phone, didn't see her daughter's troubled expression as she studied James's elaborate financial projections. Later that night, Rachel sat in her car outside her father's office building, debating whether to share what she discovered. The father she knew would never hide assets or deliberately tank his company. But the father she knew also wouldn't orchestrate an elaborate revenge scheme. High above, Alex watched his daughter's car through his office window. Soon she would understand that his actions weren't just about revenge. They were about protecting her from the same predator who had ensnared her mother. "Sullivan," he spoke into his phone, "initiate contact with Davidson's bookie. It's time to turn up the pressure." In the darkness of his study, James Davidson stared at his mounting gambling debts, his hands shaking as he calculated how much more of Monica's settlement money he could access without raising suspicion. The cafe gallery construction costs were higher than expected, and his last attempt to recoup losses at the poker table had been disastrous. His phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Heard you're looking for action. Big game tomorrow night. Buy-in, $100,000. Serious players only. James glanced at the sleeping form of Monica in their bed, then typed his response. I'm in. The trap Alex had so carefully set was about to snap shut, and none of his targets suspected they were playing exactly the roles he had designed for them. Chapter 5. Hidden Daggers. The literary cafe gallery opened on a crisp autumn morning, its stylish interior a testament to Monica's artistic vision and James's literary ambitions. Local media swarmed the event, drawn by the romantic narrative of two educators pursuing their dreams. This is what real happiness feels like, Monica whispered to James as they posed for photographs. She didn't notice his distraction, the way his eyes kept darting to his phone. Behind the scenes, Alex's plan was unfolding with devastating efficiency. The health inspector who arrived that afternoon worked for a private firm owned by one of his shell companies. The violations he found were minor but numerous enough to require immediate attention. These need to be addressed within 72 hours, the inspector announced, handing James a lengthy list. Otherwise, we'll have to shut you down temporarily. James forced a smile for Monica's benefit, but his mind raced with calculations. The repairs would cost thousands, money he'd lost at the poker table the previous night. The game had been rigged, though he didn't know it. Professional players on Alex's payroll had stripped him of another chunk of Monica's settlement funds. We'll handle it, he assured her. Just a minor setback. But the setbacks continued. Suppliers began missing deliveries. Online reviews appeared describing food poisoning symptoms. The local paper ran a story questioning the cafe's health standards. This isn't natural, Monica insisted during a late-night argument. Alex must be behind it. James slammed his hand on the counter. Not everything is about your ex-husband. Maybe if you focused more on our business and less on his supposed plot. Don't you dare blame me for this, Monica cut him off. I've invested everything in your dream. My dream? James laughed bitterly. You're the one who wanted to combine art and literature, create some kind of cultural salon. I just wanted, he stopped abruptly. Wanted what, James? Nothing. Forget it. I need some air. He stormed out, heading not for a walk, but for the underground poker game that had become his nightly obsession. What he didn't know was that Alex's surveillance team tracked his movements, documenting each desperate attempt to gamble his way out of mounting debts. Meanwhile, Rachel's wedding plans proceeded at a frantic pace. Monica threw herself into the details, perhaps trying to compensate for the cafe's struggles with maternal enthusiasm. The flowers alone cost more than my first car, Rachel complained to Thomas during a venue walkthrough. Mom and James keep pushing for bigger, grander everything. Thomas squeezed her hand. We can scale back, do something smaller. They've already put deposits down. Mom says she wants this to be the society event of the season. Neither of them knew that Alex had quietly matched each deposit, placing identical orders through different vendors. The parallel wedding he was arranging would mirror Rachel's plans exactly, a backup she might need sooner than she realized. At the cafe gallery, problems multiplied. Health code violations remained unfixed as James diverted repair money to cover gambling losses. Staff reported missing wages. Suppliers threatened to stop deliveries over unpaid bills. Monica faced it all with determined optimism, dipping into her personal accounts to keep the business afloat. She didn't know that James had already mortgaged their house, using forged signatures on loan documents. Just temporary cash flow issues, he assured her. Once we get through this rough patch. His words were interrupted by the arrival of two men whose appearance made him pale. Loan sharks, though Monica didn't recognize them as such. Professor Davidson, one said smoothly, got a minute to discuss your outstanding obligations? James led them to his office, hands trembling slightly. Through the glass partition, Monica watched their animated discussion with growing unease. Later that night, as James slept fitfully beside her, Monica logged into their joint accounts and discovered several large withdrawals she hadn't authorized. The cafe's financial records, when she finally examined them closely, revealed discrepancies that turned her blood cold. She called her lawyer first thing in the morning, But Jennifer Martinez had disturbing news of her own. The challenge to Alex's settlement is stalled, Martinez explained. Those shell companies you found? They're empty. No assets, no paper trail leading anywhere useful. It's like they were created specifically to waste our time and resources. Monica sank into her chair, realization dawning. Because they were. Alex wanted us to find them, wanted us to exhaust ourselves chasing shadows while her voice trailed off as pieces clicked into place. Across town, Alex met with Frank Sullivan to review the latest surveillance reports. Davidson's in deep, Sullivan reported. Owes money to some serious people. Been using the cafe's accounts like his personal piggy bank. And Monica? Starting to see cracks in her perfect new life. Found her accessing financial records at 3 a.m. last night. Alex nodded, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. Increase the pressure. Tell our friends in the health department to schedule another surprise inspection. And make sure those loan sharks know exactly where to find Davidson during peak business hours. What about Rachel's wedding plans? Continue matching everything they book. When this falls apart, and it will fall apart, I want her to have options. The next day brought new disasters. A health inspector shut down the kitchen after finding critical violations. Regular customers dwindled, scared off by rumors of food poisoning. Staff began quitting, tired of bounced paychecks. James grew increasingly erratic, disappearing for hours then returning with wild schemes to save the business. Monica stopped believing his explanations, started following him secretly. She tracked him to an upscale hotel one evening, expecting to discover another woman. Instead, she found him in a high-stakes poker game, thousands of dollars in chips stacked before him. Her gasp alerted him to her presence. The look he gave her wasn't guilt or shame. It was cold fury at being discovered. Monica, he said carefully, I can explain, but she was already running, her world crumbling for the second time in a year. She drove aimlessly through the city, finally stopping at the construction site that had once been Alex's proudest project. Unknown to her, Alex watched through the building's security cameras as his ex-wife sat in her car and wept. He felt no satisfaction in her pain, only grim determination to see his plan through to its brutal conclusion. Rachel, reviewing wedding details with her mother the next day, noticed Monica's reddened eyes and distracted manner. Mom? What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. Just stressed about the cafe. Monica forced a smile. Let's focus on your big day. James and I want it to be perfect. Rachel studied the guest list, noting how it had grown from their original intimate plans to a 500-person spectacle. Why are we inviting all these people I barely know? Connections are important, darling. James said. James says, James thinks, James wants. Rachel exploded. What about what I want? What about what's actually real? The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken accusations. Monica had no answer that wouldn't unravel the careful fiction she built around her new life. In his office, Alex reviewed surveillance photos showing James meeting with loan sharks, Monica crying in her car, Rachel's growing distress. Each image represented a piece of his orchestrated destruction, a step toward the final reckoning he had planned. Your daughter's suffering, Torres observed, studying the photos. Sometimes pain is necessary for growth, Alex replied. She needs to see the truth about her mother's choices, about the man who destroyed our family. And Monica? Alex's expression hardened. She chose her path. Now she'll walk it to the end. The cafe gallery's troubles mounted. Health code violations remained unfixed. Staff quit en masse. Suppliers refused delivery without payment in advance. And through it all, James gambled more desperately, convinced the next hand would solve everything. Monica watched her dream collapse, finally understanding that Alex's true revenge wasn't in the settlement or the shell companies. It was in letting her experience the consequences of trusting the wrong man. Chapter 6. Desperate Hours. James Davidson sat alone in the cafe gallery's darkened office, surrounded by unpaid bills and bounced checks. The laptop screen before him displayed his mounting gambling debts, hundreds of thousands owed to increasingly dangerous creditors. The bottle of whiskey beside him was nearly empty. His phone buzzed with another threatening message from his bookie. Time's up, Professor. Payment by midnight, or we visit that pretty cafe of yours during business hours. James grabbed the bottle, his hands shaking. The cafe's register receipts lay scattered across his desk, evidence of his theft. He'd started small, skimming a few hundred here and there, convinced he could replace it after one good night at the poker table. Now the amounts were staggering. The office door opened. Monica stood there, her face a mask of cold fury. Care to explain these? She threw a stack of bank statements onto his desk. Or should I ask your bookie? You went through my private records? James tried to summon his usual charm, but alcohol slurred his words. Private? You used my account access to steal from the cafe. The missing payroll, the supplier payments. You gambled away everything. I can fix this, he insisted, stumbling to his feet. One more game. The cards are due to turn. Stop lying. Monica's voice cracked. I talked to your previous wives. This is your pattern, isn't it? Find successful women, convince them to invest in your dreams, then bleed them dry. James's charm vanished, replaced by something darker. You were so easy to manipulate. The frustrated artist trapped in a loveless marriage, desperate to believe someone finally understood your precious talent. You son of... Face it, Monica. You wanted to be deceived. Anything to justify betraying your perfect husband. He laughed bitterly. Alex saw through me from the start, didn't he? That's why he made it so easy for you to get the settlement. Monica stepped back, realizing she was alone with a desperate man she no longer recognized. I'm calling the police. No, you won't. James moved with surprising speed, grabbing her arm. You can't afford the scandal. What would precious Rachel think? Her mother, fooled by a con man, throwing away her marriage for a gambling addict? Let go of me. The sound of a throat clearing interrupted them. Frank Sullivan stood in the doorway, his detective's badge glinting. Everything okay here, Mrs. Reeves? James released Monica instantly. We're fine. Just a private discussion. Funny, Sullivan said, entering the office. Sounded more like admission of theft and assault to me. He turned to Monica. Ma'am, I've been investigating Professor Davidson for quite some time. Would you like to press charges? Monica looked between them, understanding dawning. Alex sent you. Alex has nothing to do with this, James snapped. This is about us, Monica. Our dreams, our future. There is no us. Monica cut him off. There never was. It was all a con, wasn't it? The gallery praise, the cultural hub vision, just bait to get my money. Monica, please, save it for the police. She turned to Sullivan. I want to make a statement, but James had one final card to play. Think carefully, darling. If I go down, I'll take you with me. That settlement money? I can prove you knew about Alex's hidden assets. Conspiracy to commit fraud carries serious penalties. Monica's face paled. She looked to Sullivan, who studied her thoughtfully. Interesting threat, Professor, the detective said, but inaccurate. Those shell companies you found? They were designed to be found. No actual assets involved, therefore no fraud committed. That's impossible, James protested. The transfers, the offshore account, all legal, all traceable, all part of a plan you walked right into. Sullivan smiled coldly. Alex Reeves is many things, but sloppy isn't one of them. Monica sank into a chair, the full scope of Alex's revenge becoming clear. He hadn't hidden assets or committed fraud. He'd simply created a trail of breadcrumbs, knowing James's greed and her own desire for revenge would lead them to destroy themselves. The next hour passed in a blur of police statements and evidence collection. James was arrested for theft and assault, his facade of sophisticated charm crumbling as officers led him away. Monica sat in the ruins of her cafe gallery dream, watching detectives photograph empty registers and financial records. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Mom, where are you? We need to finalize the wedding centerpieces. The wedding. Monica had almost forgotten. She'd been so focused on the cafe disaster that she'd missed signs of trouble in the wedding planning too. James had insisted on handling vendor payments, claiming his connections could get better deals. Mrs. Reeves? Sullivan's voice interrupted her thoughts. We'll need statements from your vendors too. Any payments or contracts Professor Davidson handled. Monica's blood ran cold. The wedding vendors. He managed all the deposit. Using cafe funds, most likely, Sullivan confirmed. We're tracking the money now, but given his gambling debts, she couldn't finish the thought. Her daughter's dream wedding, paid for with stolen money. Another piece of Alex's revenge falling into place. Alex watched the security feed from his office as police escorted James from the cafe gallery. Torres stood beside him, reviewing reports from Sullivan. Davidson cracked exactly as predicted, Torres observed. The gambling debts, the theft, the threats, all documented and witnessed. And Monica? Devastated, but alive and unharmed, which is more than his previous victims can say. Alex nodded. The sight of James grabbing Monica had almost made him intervene directly, but Sullivan's timing had been perfect. The wedding vendors? Alex asked. All the legitimate payments came from cafe accounts, money Davidson stole. When this hits the news, they'll cancel the contracts. Ensure our backups are ready. Rachel shouldn't suffer for her mother's mistakes. Torres studied his friend's face. You knew Davidson would steal the wedding money. I knew he couldn't resist one final betrayal. Alex's expression was cold. Monica chose to trust a predator with our daughter's happiness. Now she'll live with that choice. The night deepened as Monica drove home, her world collapsing for the second time in a year. But this collapse was different. Not a sudden betrayal, but a slow-motion disaster she'd walked into with her eyes wide open. Her phone buzzed again. Rachel, excited about wedding plans, unaware that her mother's choices had put even that joy at risk. Monica couldn't bring herself to answer. In his hotel room, James sat with his police escort, offering to trade information for leniency. But Sullivan had anticipated this too. Save your breath, Professor, the detective advised. We already have statements from your previous victims. This time you're going down. Across town, Rachel reviewed wedding details with Thomas, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break. But Alex watched and waited, knowing his daughter would soon understand the true cost of betrayal. The pieces of his revenge were nearly complete. Monica's life lay in ruins, James faced criminal charges, and Rachel stood on the brink of painful but necessary truth. Act 2 of Alex's carefully orchestrated destruction was reaching its climax, setting the stage for the final reckoning to come. Chapter 7. Wedding Day Blues. The Beverly Hills Hotel buzzed with activity as an army of workers transformed its grand ballroom into Rachel's vision of a perfect wedding. 500 gilt-edged chairs lined the aisle, each tied with silk ribbons. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables set with fine china and silver. Monica stood in the bridal suite, adjusting Rachel's veil with trembling hands. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Rachel studied their reflection in the mirror, noting her mother's forced smile and pale complexion. Mom, what's wrong? You've been on edge all morning. Just wedding day jitters. Monica smoothed her own dress, a designer piece bought with one of the last credit cards James hadn't maxed out. Everything's perfect. James hired the best wedding planner in Beverly Hills. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text. She checked it, frowning. That's odd. The florist says their payment was declined, but James showed me the receipt last week. I'll handle it, Monica said quickly. You focus on getting ready. In the hotel lobby, James paced nervously, checking his phone. Messages from bookies and loan sharks filled his screen. He'd promised to pay them today, counting on wedding gift money to cover his debts. The cafe gallery's accounts were empty, and Monica's remaining settlement funds had vanished into poker games and sports bets. Professor Davidson. Frank Sullivan's voice made him freeze. The detective stood nearby, watching him with cold amusement. Quite a gathering you've planned. What are you doing here? Just making sure things run smoothly. Sullivan smiled. Lots of interested parties watching this event. Speaking of which, your friends from the underground poker circuit just arrived. They're quite eager to discuss your outstanding obligations. James tugged at his collar, scanning the lobby. Two men in ill-fitting suits stood by the entrance, their hard eyes fixed on him. His phone buzzed again, the wedding planner reporting more payment issues. Meanwhile, Alex sat in a private room overlooking the ballroom, surrounded by monitors showing security feeds from throughout the hotel. Torres stood beside him, reviewing final preparations. Health department just delivered their findings on the cafe gallery, Torres reported. Critical violations. They're shutting it down immediately. Timing. Inspector will arrive during the pre-wedding champagne reception. Maximum visibility. Alex nodded, checking his watch. And the process servers? Ready with litigation papers from Davidson's previous victims. They'll follow the health inspector. Rachel? Still unaware. But she's noticed problems with vendor payments. The house of cards is starting to collapse. Alex studied the security feeds. Guests filled the lobby, including faces James wouldn't want to see, former victims, gambling contacts, investigators who'd built cases against him over the years. All invited by Alex through various proxies, each playing their role in his orchestrated destruction. Sir? An aide entered with an update. The florist is threatening to remove their arrangements over the declined payment. Mrs. Reeves is trying to handle it. But let it play out, Alex interrupted. Everything on schedule. In the bridal suite, Rachel's perfect day began unraveling. The makeup artist demanded payment in advance, claiming previous checks had bounced. The photographer reported similar issues. Monica rushed between vendors, making frantic calls to James. The accounts are frozen, James hissed when she cornered him. Something about suspicious transactions. Alex must have. Don't blame Alex, Monica snapped. I saw the casino withdrawals, James. What happened to the vendor payments? I can fix this. I just need time. Their argument was interrupted by commotion in the lobby. A health inspector had arrived at the cafe gallery, posting closure notices. Behind him, process servers approached with thick envelopes of legal documents. James Davidson? One called out. You've been served. Multiple counts of fraud, theft, and embezzlement. Guests turned to stare. James backed away, but Sullivan and his men blocked his retreat. Mom? Rachel appeared in her wedding dress, face pale. What's happening? Before Monica could respond, screens throughout the venue flickered to life. Alex's final move began, displaying damning evidence for all to see. Security footage of James stealing from registers, bank records showing embezzled funds, testimonies from previous victims describing his pattern of manipulation. Rachel stared at the screens, then at her mother. You knew about this? About him? Rachel, please. But Rachel had already turned away, tears streaming down her face as she ran toward the bridal suite. Monica tried to follow, but found her path blocked by furious vendors demanding payment and guests whispering about the unfolding scandal. James seized his chance, slipping away in the chaos. But Alex had anticipated this too. Hotel security waited at each exit, while Sullivan's men watched the garage. In his observation room, Alex watched it all unfold with cold satisfaction. Not just revenge, but justice. Protecting Rachel from the predator who had destroyed other families, exposing the brutal truth Monica had tried to hide. She's asking for you, Torres said quietly, indicating Rachel on the security feed. Your daughter needs you. Alex stood, straightening his tie. The time for watching from a distance was over. Now came the moment to offer Rachel a choice. Face the truth about her mother's betrayal or continue living with comfortable lies. The wedding day he had so carefully orchestrated was collapsing exactly as planned. Each revelation striking with precision at the facade of happiness Monica and James had constructed. Soon, everyone would understand the true cost of betraying Alexander Reeves. Chapter 8. The Price of Truth. The Beverly Hills Hotel's grand ballroom, decorated for a wedding that would never happen, became a theater for Alex's final act of revenge. On screens mounted throughout the venue, evidence of James's crimes played in a devastating loop. Security footage, bank records, victim testimonies. Rachel sat alone in the bridal suite, her wedding dress a cruel reminder of shattered dreams. The door opened, and she expected her mother's excuses or James's lies. Instead, she found Carmen Delgado. Your father asked me to check on you, Carmen said softly. I thought you might want to talk to someone who understands what James Davidson really is. Tell me, Rachel whispered. Tell me everything. Carmen's story poured out. How James had seduced her years ago, convinced her to invest her savings in his schemes, then vanished with the money. How Alex had found her, offered her a chance at justice. Your father isn't just seeking revenge, Carmen explained. He's stopping James from destroying more lives. Like he almost destroyed yours. In the ballroom, Monica faced the ruins of her choices as guests departed in shocked whispers. The Bennetts huddled with their son Thomas, their disapproval evident in every glance her way. Mrs. Reeves. Michael Torres approached with a thick folder. These documents require your attention. Bank records showing James used cafe funds for gambling. Forged signatures on loan applications. Evidence of theft from your joint accounts. Monica's hands shook as she reviewed the papers. How long have you known? Alex suspected James's true nature from the start. The shell companies, the settlement. All designed to give James enough rope to hang himself. And my daughter's wedding? Was that part of his plan too? Alex protected Rachel the only way he could, by making sure she learned the truth before legally binding herself to your lies. Meanwhile, James found himself cornered in the hotel kitchen. Sullivan's men blocked one exit, while loan sharks approached from the other. Going somewhere, Professor? Sullivan asked mildly. Seems we have some unfinished business. Multiple fraud charges, outstanding gambling debts. I can pay, James said desperately. I just need time. Time's up. The detective nodded to his men. Your victims want justice. As James was led away in handcuffs, Alex finally emerged from his observation room. He moved through the chaos with calm purpose, his presence commanding attention. Rachel spotted him first. Daddy! She ran to him, wedding dress rustling, and he caught her in his arms like she was still a little girl. Monica watched their reunion with a mix of guilt and bitterness. I tried to tell you, she said, about the business troubles, the shell companies. Tried to tell her what, Monica? Alex's voice cut like steel. That you accused me of fraud to cover James's theft? That you helped him steal our daughter's wedding funds? I didn't know. You knew exactly who he was. You chose to believe his lies because they justified your betrayal. Rachel looked between her parents, understanding dawning. The journal I found? Mom, you wrote about manipulating me, making me blame Dad for everything. Rachel, please. No more lies. Alex held out his hand to his daughter. It's time you knew the whole truth. He led them to a private room where Torres had prepared a comprehensive presentation. Evidence of Monica's complicity, documentation of James's crimes, proof of how they had manipulated Rachel's perception of events. Your mother knew about James's previous victims, Alex explained. She knew about the gambling, the theft, the pattern of destroying families. But she stayed silent, helped him deceive you, because admitting the truth meant facing her own choices. Monica sank into a chair, decades of deception crumbling. I wanted to believe he was different, that we could build something real. You built nothing, Alex replied coldly. You destroyed what we had and risked our daughter's future for a con man's promises. Rachel stood by the window, her wedding dress a stark contrast to the dark revelations. The cafe gallery, the house, my wedding, all funded with stolen money, Torres confirmed. James gambled away the vendor payments months ago. Alex turned to his daughter. I have another venue ready. Different vendors, everything paid in full. You can still have your dream wedding, Rachel, but only if you're ready to face the truth about why this one collapsed. Rachel looked at her mother, seeing her clearly for the first time. You let him steal from my wedding fund? After everything Dad did to protect me? I didn't know he was stealing, Monica protested weakly. You thought what you wanted to think, Alex cut her off. Just like you thought I was hiding assets, when I was actually protecting our daughter from your mistakes. The truth hung heavy in the room. Rachel's dream wedding lay in ruins, but something stronger emerged from the wreckage. Understanding of her father's love, his ruthless determination to protect her even if it meant destroying her illusions. What happens now? She asked quietly. Alex's expression softened slightly. That depends on you. We can reschedule the wedding, do it right this time. Or we can step back, let you and Thomas decide what you really want without your mother's manipulation. Rachel met his eyes, seeing the strength that had driven him through months of calculated revenge. Not just punishment for betrayal, but protection of what mattered most, his daughter's future. Monica watched them, finally understanding the full scope of Alex's revenge. He hadn't just exposed James's crimes or destroyed their cafe gallery dream. He had shown Rachel the truth about her mother's choices, freed her from the web of lies Monica had helped weave. The price of truth was steep, but Alex Reeves had never shied away from collecting debts owed to him, especially debts of betrayal. Chapter 9. Tomorrow's Promise. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, Alex sat in his office reviewing reports about James Davidson's legal troubles. Multiple fraud charges, testimony from previous victims, evidence of embezzlement. The professor faced years in prison. Sullivan entered with fresh intel. Davidson jumped bail last night. Took a private flight to a non-extradition country. You sound worried, Alex noted, studying the detective's expression. Man like that, he might try to revenge. Let him run. Alex's voice held cold amusement. Living in exile, looking over his shoulder, knowing he can never return. That's a better punishment than prison. Later that evening, Alex met Rachel for their weekly dinner. These meetings had become a ritual of healing, father and daughter rebuilding trust over careful conversations. Thomas and I set a new date, Rachel announced. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. No grand spectacles this time. Alex nodded approvingly. You've learned. From you. Rachel smiled sadly. Mom called again. She's settled in Oregon with Aunt Sarah, trying to restart her art career. And I'm not ready to forgive her. Maybe someday, but she met her father's eyes. Thank you for showing me the truth, even though it hurt. Alex squeezed her hand, remembering the little girl who once thought her mother perfect and her father too focused on business. Now she understood. His drive had always been about protecting her, even when that meant orchestrating painful revelations. Across town, the former cafe gallery underwent renovations. Alex had bought it through one of his companies, transforming the space into something new. Rachel and Thomas would run it together, a fresh start, built on truth instead of lies. The final piece of Alex's revenge played out quietly. Frank Sullivan delivered an envelope containing proof of James's flight, evidence that could keep him running forever. Alex filed it away, a reminder that some debts can never be fully repaid. But revenge had brought unexpected gifts. Rachel saw him clearly now, understanding the strength that others mistook for coldness. And perhaps most surprisingly, Alex had found connection with Carmen Delgado, whose own experience with James had made her value truth above comfortable lies. The sun set over Hartford as Alex reviewed one last report. Monica's new life in Oregon, humbled but slowly rebuilding. He felt no satisfaction in her pain, only certainty that justice had been served. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Alexander Reeves faced them without illusion. He had protected his daughter, exposed truth, and proved that betrayal always carried a price. In the end, his revenge wasn't just destruction, it was revelation. Rachel understood now that real love meant facing hard truths, that strength sometimes required ruthlessness, and that her father's cold fury had always been about justice, not mere vengeance. The Reeves family story had been rewritten, stripped of lies and illusions. And in that harsh but honest light, something stronger could finally grow. Epilogue. 5 years later, Alexander Reeves stood at his office window in the Reeves Tower, Hartford's newest architectural masterpiece. At 50, he remained a commanding presence in Connecticut's business world, though recent years had softened some of his harder edges. The company had expanded beyond construction into technology and sustainable development, with Rachel now serving as Chief Innovation Officer. His phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. Don't forget dinner with Rachel and Thomas tonight. And yes, I already moved your board meeting. A smile touched his lips. Carmen Delgado had transformed from ally to confidant to wife over the past 3 years, her strength matching his own. Their wedding had been private, attended only by Rachel, Thomas, and a few close friends. No grand gestures, no illusions, just truth. The foundation they'd both learned to value above all else. Mr. Reeves? His assistant's voice came through the intercom. Frank Sullivan is here with his quarterly report. The retired detective entered, carrying his trademark manila envelope. At 70, Sullivan had officially retired from private investigation, but he maintained a special contract with Reeves Construction to monitor certain individuals. Davidson's still in Buenos Aires, Sullivan reported, spreading photos across Alex's desk. Running some literary salon scam, but the locals are getting suspicious. Won't last 6 months before he has to run again. Alex studied the images of his former rival. James Davidson had aged poorly, his charm weathered by years of looking over his shoulder. The professor's attempt to return to the States 2 years ago had been thwarted by an anonymous tip to Interpol, one of many ways Alex ensured his daughter's betrayer never found peace. And Monica? Sullivan pulled out another report. Still in Portland. Her gallery's doing well, surprisingly. Specializes in art therapy for trauma survivors. She's changed. Alex nodded, unsurprised. Monica's transformation had begun with rock bottom, losing her daughter's trust, facing the consequences of her choices, rebuilding from nothing. Her small gallery had become a sanctuary for others healing from betrayal and manipulation. Rachel still won't see her? They exchange emails sometimes. Baby steps. Sullivan paused. Monica asked about attending the grandson's first birthday next month. Alex's expression remained neutral, but his hand tightened on his chair. Little Alexander Thomas Bennett, named for both grandfathers, represented new beginnings and old wounds. Rachel had invited her mother to the birth, but rescinded when Monica tried using it to force reconciliation. That's Rachel's decision, he said finally. I won't interfere. Later that evening, Alex and Carmen arrived at Chapter 1, the restaurant Rachel and Thomas had created from the ashes of the failed cafe gallery. The space had been transformed, its dark history replaced by warm lighting and welcoming atmosphere. The name was Rachel's idea, representing fresh starts and new stories. Rachel greeted them at the door, baby Alexander on her hip. At 24, she'd grown into a formidable businesswoman, combining her father's strategic mind with hard-earned wisdom about human nature. Dad, Carmen, come see what Thomas designed for the new rooftop garden. They followed her upstairs, where Thomas Bennett waited with blueprints. The young architect had proven himself worthy of Rachel, standing by her through the wedding disaster and helping her understand her father's actions. Now he designed sustainable buildings for Reeves Construction while helping run the restaurant. We're expanding the hydroponic system, Thomas explained, spreading out the plans. Farm-to-table dining with zero carbon footprint. The Bennett Foundation is funding similar projects across the city. Alex studied the designs with professional interest, but his attention kept drifting to his grandson. The boy had Rachel's artistic sensitivity and his own penetrating gaze, a combination that promised interesting times ahead. Have you heard from your mother? Carmen asked Rachel quietly as the men discussed technical details. Rachel bounced Alexander gently. She sends cards and emails. Wants to visit when she has an art show in Hartford next spring. She paused. I'm considering it. Not for me, but for him. He should know his grandmother, the real her, not the fantasy she tried to maintain. Carmen squeezed her stepdaughter's hand. You have time. Healing doesn't follow a schedule. Their conversation was interrupted by Michael Torres arriving with his wife. The lawyer remained Alex's closest friend, his ruthless professional expertise now tempered by genuine care for the Reeves family. Sorry we're late, Torres called out. Had to finish the paperwork on the Davidson estate seizure. This caught Alex's attention. Problems? He tried transferring assets to a shell company in Paraguay. Amateur move. Torres smirked. Everything's been frozen and added to the victim restitution fund. Carmen, your foundation can start distributing payments next week. The Carmen Delgado Foundation for Survivor Support had emerged from the ashes of revenge, using seized assets from predators like James to help their victims rebuild. The irony of James's stolen money funding recovery programs wasn't lost on anyone. As they settled in for dinner, Alex observed his expanded family with quiet satisfaction. Rachel discussed business strategy with Torres while bouncing Alexander on her knee. Thomas and Carmen debated sustainable architecture. The restaurant hummed with happy customers below. His phone buzzed, another update from Sullivan. He checked it discreetly. Monica's Portland gallery is featuring trauma survivors' art. Latest piece. Abstract painting titled Consequences of Deception. Artist's statement mentions learning hard lessons about truth. Thought you should know. Alex slipped the phone away, unsurprised. Monica's journey from betrayer to healer seemed genuine, though he'd never fully trust her again. But Rachel was right. Little Alexander deserved to know his grandmother, once she'd proven her commitment to honest relationships. Later that night, after dinner had ended and goodbyes were said, Alex and Carmen walked through downtown Hartford. The city had changed under Reeves Construction's influence, greener, more sustainable, but still maintaining its character. "Sullivan sent you something at dinner," Carmen observed. "Monica? She's building something real this time. No shortcuts, no self-deception." Alex's voice held no bitterness, only analytical certainty. "It won't erase the past, but healing is possible, with enough time and truth," Carmen finished. She'd learned this lesson herself, transforming from James's victim to survivor to advocate. Her relationship with Alex had grown from that shared understanding, strength drawn from facing hard truths. They passed the site of Alex's next project, a complex combining affordable housing with green technology. The plans included a community art space, though few knew this was inspired by Monica's Portland gallery. Some wounds healed by creating something better from their ashes. At home, Alex found an email from Rachel. "Dad, Mom asked about Alexander's birthday party. I'm considering saying yes, with conditions. She needs to understand this isn't about her redemption. It's about her grandson having a chance to know her, if she can be honest with him. You taught me that real love sometimes means making hard choices. I choose to give her this chance, but with the same clear vision you showed me. No illusions, no comfortable lies. Thank you for everything. Love, Rachel." Alex showed the email to Carmen, who read it thoughtfully. "She's become quite the strategist." "She's become herself," Alex corrected. "Strong enough for truth, even when it's difficult." The next morning brought news that James had fled Argentina, his latest scheme exposed. But Alex felt no satisfaction in his enemy's continued downfall. Revenge had evolved into justice, then into something more meaningful, protection of future potential victims. The Carmen Delgado Foundation had identified James's newest targets and warned them, turning his own pattern against him. He would never again find easy prey, never successfully run his cons. The predator had become the hunted, his world shrinking with each exposed deception. During their weekly father-daughter lunch, Rachel shared her decision about Monica's gallery show visit. "I'm setting boundaries. She can see Alexander, but not alone. No overnight visits, no pushing for more than we offer. And at the first sign of manipulation, you'll handle it," Alex finished. "You don't need my protection anymore." Rachel smiled, her eyes shrewd. "No, but I learned from the master." Speaking of which, the Bennett Foundation's new domestic violence shelter? Mom's Gallery wants to provide art therapy programs. Alex considered this carefully. Monica working with the Bennetts represented more than professional collaboration. It was Rachel testing her mother's commitment to change. "Your decision," he said finally. "You've earned the right to write your own story." That evening, Alex reviewed old case files with Sullivan. James Davidson's victims had all received restitution, their lives rebuilt with foundation support. The detective's daughter had opened a counseling center for survivors of financial abuse. Even Monica's gallery collaborated with domestic violence programs. "Quite a legacy," Sullivan observed. "Not just revenge anymore, is it?" "It never was," Alex replied. "Revenge is temporary. This is permanent change." He thought of his grandson, growing up surrounded by strong women who had faced their truths and rebuilt. Of Rachel, leading companies while maintaining her compassion. Of Carmen, transforming victims into survivors. Even of Monica, using her hard-learned lessons to help others heal. The next generation would know a different story, not just of revenge, but of redemption. Not of destruction, but of rebuilding. Alexander Thomas Bennett would inherit more than wealth and power. He would inherit the wisdom born from his family's darkest chapter. As if sensing his thoughts, Carmen brought him a fresh report. James Davidson had been spotted in Myanmar, looking older and haunted. His world grew smaller while theirs expanded. Perfect symmetry, perfect justice. "The Foundation Board meets tomorrow," she reminded him. "We're reviewing proposals for new survivor support programs." Alex nodded, already thinking ahead. The next phase wasn't about punishment, it was about prevention. Education programs to spot predators like James. support systems to catch people before they made Monica's choices, a network of protection and truth-telling that would outlast any single act of revenge. Rachel's words from her email echoed in his mind. Real love sometimes means making hard choices. He had chosen ruthless revenge, but time had transformed it into something larger, a legacy of strength, truth, and protection that would ripple outward through generations. The sun set over Hartford as Alex Reeves contemplated tomorrow's promises. His revenge had ended, but its lessons lived on. In Rachel's clear-eyed leadership, in Monica's painful growth, in Carmen's transformative work, even in James's endless exile. Some debts could never be repaid, some betrayals never fully healed. But the story hadn't ended with revenge. It had evolved into something more powerful, a testament to the enduring strength of truth, the possibility of redemption, and the profound impact of choosing wisdom over vengeance. Alexander Thomas Bennett would grow up knowing this legacy, not as a tale of destruction, but as proof that even the darkest moments could birth something meaningful. And in that truth lay the greatest victory of all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.